Penny Glass was an RN nurse practitioner for the City of Tulsa Healthcare Clinic on the night shift, and during the day a few days a week moonlighted for the clinic out in Osage County at the Millbrook Oil and Gas Company man camp, not far from several of the wells that Millbrook Oil leased out there. She was a popular person, considering the doctor they had was an old drunk that mostly sent things to the nearest hospital when Penny wasn't there. The other nurse was an LPN, and she was only hired for her looks. Penny lived at the Millbrook RV park, where a number of the families of the men lived. They weren't opposed to this, and in fact trusted her with their kids. Most of them didn't want to go to a regular ER. Too many questions, and they didn't like DHS prying into their business when it came to their children. They took good care of their kids, but living in an RV was somehow frowned upon by the local community. Others were immigrants and couldn't afford the questions. Penny was also a witch, descended from the very roots of Salem and the old country. She was an Irish witch in origin, something a few of them were superstitious of, but many overlooked. For one reason or another, they would eventually come to her about something other than modern medicine. Penny was seated quietly in her RV, having tea with Elizabeth Herbert waiting on her parents. She'd been talking with her about a set of very serious allegations and wanted to have someone to help her tell her parents, but didn't know how because her father had a temper. Penny had agreed to because she wanted the girl to not be afraid to tell her parents what was going on, and someone needed to come forward besides her and report that creep Brady. There was a knock on the door, and Penny got up to answer it. It was Ben Herbert with his wife Angie. They were both of African-American descent and from Pittsburgh originally. Oklahoma was a new flavor of people for them. "What's this about?" Ben said. "Well, the girl has a story to tell you, and I want you to listen to the whole story before you walk out that door pissed off. I know you will, and you have the right to be, but she needs her daddy right now," Penny told him in a firm tone. Usually, Ben didn't take this tone from anyone, but Penny had a way with people and a little touch of magic about her. "Baby, you can tell Daddy anything," he said as he sat down at the table next to her. Angie sat down across from them, and Penny stood across the room in her kitchen. Elizabeth looked at her, and she nodded. As she talked, Penny watched and listened to the girl tell the story of how Brady Millbrook had been watching her too closely. He had been watching her in a way that made her feel uncomfortable, unclean, like he was leering at her all the time, in a way that he would eat her. Then she told them of going to the office one day to pay the rent for Mama and saw Brady watching cameras in the showers. Not just watching, but the women and children weren't wearing clothes at all. One of the women was Mama. After she was done telling her story, Ben kissed his daughter on the forehead, nodded to his wife, then he got up quietly with a look of rage on his face and left the RV without slamming the door. "Where's he going?" Elizabeth asked. "Nowhere good," Penny said with a frown. Ben walked over to Alfonso's trailer in the back. He knew he was home and his wife would be asleep. He texted him to come outside. Ben was on the same crew with him. They'd worked on the same crew nearly 10 years now. Ben told him what Elizabeth had said. Alfonso and Ben decided to handle this themselves, knowing the cops weren't going to do anything to a Millbrook. They had money after all. Alfonso got on the phone and got a few others together. After that, they decided to go over to the office first and have a party removing all the cameras. It was going to take Brady time to put back all the cameras after they were done. No more kitty pictures for that son of a bitch. Next one of them pulled up a van next to Brady's house and knew they needed to lure him out. It wasn't very hard. They just asked him to come out so they could talk to him for a minute. When he stepped outside, 2 of them hit him. They found him strong, really strong. But they were able to get him into the van and tied him up. They hit him in the head with a pipe when he tried to attack them. He was bleeding and yet still awake. Brady realized he wasn't able to change here in the van. He would have to wait until... and ran for what felt like miles before they came to a stop. Then the side door slammed open and he was drug out. They were at one of the oil well sites in Osage County. The pump sites were maintained by Ben's crew. So no one was going to think it strange they were out there should someone come looking, as long as they didn't look too closely. They didn't care they were about to kill him. He'd been looking at their children and wives naked. Pipe wrenches came out of nowhere and began beating Brady. Brady swung blindly.
Blood running into his face, he was gathering his strength as the change came upon him. The mouth full of teeth and the claws came, and the workers kept swinging at the monster, now seeing it for what it truly was.
They were enraged by this abomination to God, most of them unafraid, having been to Afghanistan. They had all seen things they couldn't explain, and this monster was just one more, and they weren't going to let it get their families.
Brady turned on the piping of the well, ripping loose piping from the off-gassing of the well. It was spewing gas everywhere. Ben only saw a second later a gun got pulled on the creature, and that was the last thing he ever saw.
Brady was half burned as he crawled to the van. He had to find a way to call his grandfather. He was dying without help. They had bled him badly, and he was still burning. He stumbled blindly toward the van when a shot rang out of nowhere and knocked him from his feet. It was Alfonso. He'd been blown back against the van in the concussion. He'd called the blow out to his boss, but he wasn't going to jail for just attempted murder. It was going to be for finishing this monster off, to protect what was his.
Moments later, cars and fire trucks arrived. Brady was still moving, surprisingly. The Osage County Sheriff arrived to see the carnage and took Alfonso into custody. The ambulance loaded Brady quickly and rushed his half-burned body away, not expecting him to live, and wasn't sure how he was alive to begin with. It didn't matter. Brady was transferred to a private ambulance and taken to Oklahoma City quickly. His grandfather had him put in a private room in his own home with special equipment to treat the vast damage done. He might not survive it at all.